I guess I just didn't understand where that glove came from. It almost made it seem like she was wearing one of those outfits like in the beginning, you know, the big slow waddly guys, or was I just making the wrong connection there?
I just can't believe that you guys are even thinking about this stuff when there's a naked Milla Jovovich on a table.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? And if you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I'm one of your three hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene Lyons.
I am a meat popsicle.
And each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films from our childhoods still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 4 movie choices that we then break out our VHS race car tape rewinders and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of each podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your butts. Find a comfortable spot on the couch, or if you're on a subway or wherever you are in your morning commute, and accompany us on our journey through our vast VHS movie collections. If you haven't already, please subscribe and download via iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us everywhere on social media. This week, we are joined. I'm very happy that we were able to schedule him. He is the co-host of Real Spoilers. That's REEL Spoilers. You can find that everywhere on podcasts, as well as he is editor on Review STL. That's St. Louis for those across the ponds. It's Kevin from Real Spoilers, Kevin Brackett. Kevin, welcome to Shat the Movies.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
So, Kevin, now, for those of you who have never listened to Real Spoilers or don't know what Real Spoilers is, give us your elevator speech, your 30 seconds to describe what Real Spoilers is.
So we kind of think of ourselves as a book club for movies. So what we're going to do is we review the newest movie of the week. Usually it's going to be one that, you know, is the biggest one at the box office, maybe the most ridiculous one out at theaters, and we're going to spoil it for you. So nothing is held back. If you're one of those people that doesn't like spoilers, go see the movie first, then listen to it later. But we dissect it. We tear it apart. We're going to go through every plot point. We're going to tell you what we think of it. We don't really hold back ourselves. You know, we like to have a lot of fun with these movies, and it's a good time.
One of my favorite episodes that was recently done, I guess, I don't know, it was around February, whenever it came out, was your 50 Shades of Grey Darker. Was that it? Because you had all your girlfriends and respective wives, and then a sex therapist also joined as well?
Yeah, that's a fun one. So this is actually the second time we've done that. So when the original 50 Shades came out, we thought, you know, we've got 4 or 5 guys doing this podcast, and, you know, what are we going to say about this movie? So we thought, well, we'll bring on our wives or our girlfriends, significant others. And then we brought in the sex therapist to make it real interesting so that she could actually tell us, like, is the stuff in the movie just crazy? Is this stuff people do, or is this detrimental to people's understandings of, you know, intimacy? And so it was a lot of fun. And so we just did it again with the new one. And I would definitely say if you were going to pick one to start out on, those are probably good starting points.
Yeah, definitely recommend those if you have a girlfriend or think about having a girlfriend or just love BDM play. Is that what it's called, BDM? Is it? No, that's beats per minute. What is it
You're thinking of BDSM.
Ah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Bondage, dominance, and sadomasochism.
Aha, I knew Gene would get that. So yeah.
That's Raj winking. I don't know what that's called.
That's so sorry. It's not like Gene and I don't do that every Friday night. So check them out. Real Spoilers. Subscribe now. And we've been communicating for like 4 months now about trying to get each other on. And when The Fifth Element came up, you immediately Twittered me and you were like, hey, I love this movie. I want to do this. And I said, absolutely, come on and join us. Big D, The Fifth Element was included in this week's movie choices because it was it Bruce Willis or was it Aliens or was it about movies that involve elements of earth, wind, fire, and rain?
I'm a big fan of Bruce Willis's performance in E.T. He was amazing in that. The fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, this week was alien movies. And again, people keep going the opposite direction. I think it's going to go one way. And how does Aliens not win after Bill Paxton's recent passing?
Well, this was a tight race. I'm looking at the numbers in front of me. Of all the movie selections that the audience has voted on, this was the closest race we've had, I think, ever.
No, I think the closest ever was the what was it? It was Highlander and Conan. But that was a 2-horse race.
Well, as soon as I saw this, I said to Raj, I said, how are you going to choose between Aliens and The Fifth Element? That's the first thing that I said. How can you even choose between those two?
And I keep putting Aliens on there, trying to force it, but they keep going the other way. I don't know. And either they hate Gene, because Gene's been pulling for The Thing for a long time. So I don't know, but the people have spoken, so we go that way.
Yeah, so for those of you who've never seen The Fifth Element or never listened to the podcast, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about it. Like on Real Spoilers, we're going to break down all the plot points and dissect it. So if you've never seen The Fifth Element, now's your time to pause the podcast, go watch it, then turn back on the podcast from here. This is why we're not on radio. This is why we do podcasts. The movie is a 1997 movie. In the colorful future, a cab driver unwittingly becomes a central figure in the search for a legendary cosmic weapon to keep evil and Mr. Zorg at bay. Gentlemen, we always start off the podcast, Kevin, as a first-timer, we always talk about where you were because we're all relatively the same age here. Where were you when you first saw this movie? Kevin, as the guest, you go first.
Well, so I was an early teenager when this movie came out, and I had just gotten a DVD player. I think it was in 1999, and there were a few movies that I bought, and I think Austin Powers came with it. I think like everybody had Austin Powers with their DVD player, and I'm trying to think. There were a couple other ones, like Blade, I think I bought, and The Fifth Element. And The Fifth Element was one that I watched over and over, and it was the coolest thing. And so I thought, yeah, Fifth Element, and I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, kids today obviously have never experienced those bundle packs when you used to buy the DVDs. And you would get the one movie you wanted, and then it would be stuck with like Turner and Hooch and Mr. Mom. And you'd be like, God damn it, I need it. And you'd end up buying it anyway.
Yeah, so Dick, what was your memory of this movie?
Well, I've always been a big fan of sci-fi. Any kind of future film, I'm always there. And this was one of those. I was in college, and I can remember going opening night. It was a full theater, even though it didn't do great at the box office. Our theater was full, and we were high as a kite. We sat in the parking lot before and smoked. So my first experience with this movie was a little bit different than mine tonight, but I enjoyed them both in different ways.
What are you talking about? This movie was a major hit during the summer. It grossed 3 times the amount of its budget. Of course, it did make 67% of its proceeds overseas because this is technically a French film. But I remember this being a summer blockbuster.
I don't know, blockbuster. When we're talking about movies that like Twister, some of those that actually dominated the summer, people weren't, talking at the water cooler about Fifth Element the way they were Jurassic Park or some of the other big ones. But it was enjoyable nonetheless.
Gene, how about you?
I was taken into this movie just because of the fact that it had Milla Jovovich in it. So at this point, I was an incredible, I was about to say incredibly horny teenager. I was a teenager. And so I wanted to see everything she was in. And so that was the whole reason I saw it. And then I just remember discovering Gary Oldman and Chris Tucker through this movie. I'd really never seen their work before. And after this, I was like hooked on both of those guys. Incredibly talented.
For me, this was one of my Friday night movie dates with my high school girlfriends. We used to go in my Chevrolet Celebrity and have sex after watching movies. The routine was we'd go see a movie Friday night. We go to Chili's. We'd split the queso dip, and then we go have sex on the pull-out couch in my childhood playroom. I can't understand why it wasn't more popular in high school.
I'm assuming that one of those nights you watched The Fifth Element, which is the movie we're talking about, or was this?
That's what I'm saying. We watched The Fifth Element. We ate Chili's. I had the queso dip. We might have eaten Chili's beforehand, then watched the movie because sometimes we would we'd mix it up a little bit to be adventurous. My high school girlfriend was very pretty, but she was no Milla Jovovich. She was very.
I got bad news for you, buddy. You're not Bruce Willis.
We have the same hairline.
I'd like to point out that that Kevin had 30 seconds to explain real spoilers. And Raj just took 3 minutes to talk about fucking in queso dip.
So this.
So let me tell you more about real spoilers. So basically,
this movie is. We all talked about this. We could not wait to do this movie. It had everything. It had practical effects. It had Milla Jovovich in an iconic costume. It had Bruce Willis before he shaved off all his head and for some reason dyed it blonde. This movie I could not wait to review.
I was excited after we had done Blade Runner, and we had our memory really destroyed, but we thought it was beautiful. You know, the set design, it was visually stunning. So I said, this is a movie that's similar. It's beautiful to watch, and I hope it would hold up. And I got to tell you, for me, I found it to really be something that was, up until the third act, held up for me and was really enjoyable. But I don't know, what did you think? Did you lose it like Blade Runner?
No, it's I still think it holds up, and to my surprise, you talk about the sound editing. This movie was actually nominated for an Academy Award at the 70th Academy Awards in 1998. It was Mark Mangini. He was the sound editor on this. He was actually nominated. They didn't win, but they were nominated. I also found out that Luc Besson, because this is a French film, and I'm not sure if the two are related, he won Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival. Now, I used to think the Cannes Film Festival was only for really important films. We talked about Pulp Fiction winning. Apparently, if you're French, it doesn't matter. You can win any award at the Cannes Film Festival.
I think that we have to also remember that this was 1997, right? And so when we're going back and looking at a movie that is, retrospectively, obviously the CG isn't there and, the technology isn't there, compared to what we have today. But at the time, what was really surprising to me was all the use of CG. They did have great practical effects, but they also had a lot of computer generated stuff, mostly the backgrounds and the spaceships. And thinking that it was 20 years ago, I mean, today it doesn't hold a candle to anything, but back then it's pretty impressive for the time.
One of the things that I liked that they did is that the technology that's supposed to be future technology is kind of retrofitted, much like Blade Runner, right, Big D?
Yeah, I think what they try to do is make technology in the future, not this, we always talk the early Star Wars, whether it's Attack of the Clones or Phantom Menace, that it was almost a pristine, idealistic, utopian future. Here, I think it's the way we would go, which is you use what you have, and they didn't take themselves too seriously. I think there was a kind of tongue-in-cheek component to the design, that it wasn't meant to really look futuristic. It was to go and match the fun tone of the film, and anywhere from the police cars to the helmets with all the tubes coming out, or just random buttons, or it seemed like everybody was wearing a Westworld lab coat. I thought they did a good job of making the world seem lived in, and I think that really helped set the tone for the movie.
Well, the design I learned in my research was actually borrowed from a French comic book. If you look at side-by-side comparisons of the movie to the comic book, they go kind of hand-to-hand, but it does have kind of a more cheerful Blade Runner look throughout the movie, which I enjoyed. You talked about being more fun. We just did Major League, and Kevin, I don't know what your opinion of this is, but Gene and Big D seem to think that the movie is very racist. I said, well, it's tongue-in-cheek. They're positive stereotypes. They're not really making fun of anything. What did you guys think of the Asian food ship? Was that a little overt racism there for you guys?
No, to me, this was actually, I felt that, and again, I don't have any reason to believe this other than just what I saw with my own eyes. It really felt like an homage to Blade Runner. I felt like this was what would happen if you took Blade Runner and just the sun came out one day, right? But there were a lot of parallels, though, with the way the streets and the buildings were organized. And again, you had that iconic scene with Harrison Ford at the noodle shop in Blade Runner. I think that this was sort of a nod to that. I thought it was really cool. And the guy, again, when we talk about a positive or a negative stereotype, the guy in this movie, the noodle shop guy, he's wise, he's cheerful. He's a nice guy. He's a businessman. There's nothing there that, I mean, yeah, he happens to be Asian and sells noodles, but that's a real fact of life. Like, there are Asian noodle salesmen.
Yeah, but couldn't he have like a noodle truck, like a futuristic noodle van, like we go to food trucks. He's got like a wooden ship, like a wooden Asian ship that you would go fish out of.
All right, Raj, have you ever, and I know before even asking this, the answer is yes. Have you ever eaten at P.F. Chang's?
The answer is obviously no. I only go to Panda Express.
Okay, so they've got like the statues outside of the horses and all that. I mean, it's thematic. It's just it's a matter of it's a shtick.
Let me ask you guys this. Luc Besson started writing this when he was 16. He was 38 at the film premiere. Did you think that in young 16-year-old Luc Besson's mind that he would the movie that he was writing at that time would ultimately land him a marriage with a hot Milla Jovovich?
Well, I was thinking that definitely explains all the topless scenes in this movie.
Yeah. They got married shortly after this film. But it makes me want to break out my old screenplays from when I was in high school and middle school and start attacking that and thinking, hey, maybe I can land a hot Russian model actress as my wife as well. And as I rapidly approach my 40s.
Dare to dream.
Yeah. So without further delay, Big D, play the trailer.
Every 5,000 years, when the three planets are in eclipse, the black hole like a door is opened. Evil comes, spreading terror and chaos.
There's nothing that can stop this.
There is only one thing.
They're here.
The Mondachiwan have in their possession the only weapon to defeat evil. 4 elements. Gathered around the 5th. The supreme being, the ultimate warrior.
Remove the shield.
Welcome on board, Mr. Dallas.
A city person.
Mr. Dallas, you've been selected for a mission of the utmost importance.
What mission?
Save the world.
Where is the stone? I don't know. And even if I did know, I wouldn't tell somebody like you.
We're taking over the ship.
Me, 5th element. Supreme being.
All right, the story's premise is that every 5,000 years, in conjunction with a planetary arrangement, a great evil appears whose purpose is to destroy life. In preparation for the next appearance in 2263, a group of aliens called the Mondoshawan? Mondoshawan? Am I saying that right, Gene?
I don't know. Did you watch the movie, Raj?
I did. The Mondoshawan. They arrive on Earth in 1914 in Egypt to extract the only weapon capable of defeating the great evil, a collection of 4 stones representing the classical elements of the eponymous 5th element that conjugates into the other 4 into organic life. After taking the weapons, the Mondoshawans present a key to the priest and tell him to pass the information, provoking their mission through future generations in preparation for the evil's arrival.
So I'll take the baton first and just start off by saying I was watching the clock on this movie because I was so excited about watching it and it just crawled into existence. The entire setup was a snore. We talked last week about Major League and how, you had this quick Randy Newman montage and told you exactly what was going on. And it's just a matter of finding different ways to tell a story. It doesn't have to be an acted out narrative. I really wish that the filmmakers would have found a more creative way to tell this tale and set it up. I was bored from the get-go.
I was with you there. I mean, because I love this movie and I grew up with it, I still was interested to see it play out and watch it again. But I was watching the clock as well and thinking, oh my gosh, I don't remember there being 20 minutes of setup and just long static shots of things that don't matter. It just seemed to go on and on and on. And then these turtle armadillo armored guys come out. Like when I was younger, I thought that those Mondo Shawans were cool looking, and I see this and I'm just like, are those people inside of those outfits? Are they shaped like that? Is it just armor? I mean, I have no idea what those guys are, but they're as inefficient as a being or an alien could be.
Yeah, they're not very functional when you think about it as guardians, right?
Yeah, I don't know what they would guard. What could they possibly do?
Big D, you're a military expert here. As if you are supposed to be a guardian, a protector against the great evil of the universe, what type of armor would you probably want to equip your soldiers with?
I already commented that I really like, some of the design elements, but the Mondos, they're awful. I don't know what they're going to be a guardian of. When you think of the functionality, they've got little baby T-Rex arms. They take up quite a bit of physical space. So unless they're going to be some kind of shield, they'd be great at that because we've seen they deflect bullets. They got the tiny head so they can't see over their shoulder, and really not a good protector of anything special because all you got to do is grab one of the stones and run away. They're not going to catch you.
Yeah. Well, you would think like, okay, well, maybe if they're equipped with like this massive armor that nothing can destroy them, right? No, it only takes like 2 little starfighters to destroy their ship and it crashes into a planet, right? But they looked really cool. And again, I like the fact that there was probably an extra that probably got paid like $50 a day to sweat in one of those suits. So again, you got to kind of give it to Luc Besson for using practical effects and not bad CGI that was available in 1997.
But I got to ask, I'm a big Stargate fan. Was that the set of Stargate where they're entering the temple? The pillars look identical, the way you can actually come into it. Now, from the outside, I think in Stargate, it was actually a pyramid. But this had to be the same set.
I think you're giving The Fifth Element too much credit here in that Stargate at least made some effort to make it look, I don't know, should we call it rustic or something in the pyramid. This looks like a Disney attraction when they go in there. The 90s had an obsession with making the past look clean, whether it was Tombstone or The Fifth Element. This is Egypt. There should be dust. Luke Perry looks way too clean and completely useless in this scene. So I was really, again, when we're talking about a scenery that looks lived in, this doesn't look lived in at all to me.
Yeah, the architect was taking his brush on these artifacts and just brushing nothing away. It was like a clean mold that had just come off the line and put on this movie set. And you see him with his brush just like fake waving it around. It's like, what are you doing? There's no dust.
But you want to just talk about bad timing? If you're sitting there decoding these ancient hieroglyphics and they just happen, the aliens come that exact moment. Is that just bad timing, or were they somehow summoned by the Discovery?
I didn't really understand why the priest wanted to poison them. Like, why would you want to poison the archaeologists right there?
Well, I think it still even goes to a bigger point. Wouldn't you want more people to know how to stop the annihilation of the entire
planet?
It shouldn't be something that a few people keep secret, because then if they die, God forbid, a boulder falls on their head, the entire human race is damned.
No, I definitely agree. But back to your point about the Stargate, it does feel like this movie used recycled props and sets from other movies, and I'm not sure if that was just to save money, but the monsters look like from Battlestar Galactica. They borrow from that. And then the police officers look like from the set of Judge Dredd. Like, there was like all these different elements of sci-fi movies, and maybe that's why I love this, is that they're all kind of recycled, and maybe my mind subconsciously is like, oh, these are all movies I really like, so I guess by default I'll like this movie as well.
I hate to hold up the progress of the podcast because I like to speed right through these things, but what monsters were in Battlestar Galactica?
Edward James Olmos. So in 2263, the great evil appears and destroys the interplanetary battleship. When the Mondos attempt to deliver the elements back to Earth, they are ambushed by another alien race, the shape-shifting Mangalores. Earthly scientists are able to recover a portion of the fifth element and use a reconstruction device to recreate it, whereupon it takes the form of an apparently human woman named Leeloo, described as the perfect being. Leeloo, terrified by her unfamiliar environs, escapes the scientists and arrives in the care of taxi driver Korben Dallas, a former major in the Federated Army's Special Forces. Dallas then delivers her to priest Vito Cornelius, the current holder of the Mondo Shawan's knowledge. Dallas, Cornelius, and his acolyte David help Leeloo recover, though Dallas is forced out of Cornelius' apartment before learning her purpose.
So I've got to say here, I don't remember this when I was younger, how they resurrected Leeloo, but why on earth was she resurrected from like a metal hand that looks like it came from one of these turtle armadillo creatures? Are they saying that she was a warrior in one of these outfits, or I just don't understand it?
No, I think her biological hand was inside of the armor or some kind of cocoon, that they just didn't want to touch it at risk of killing it. But I think there was biological matter within the glove.
I guess I just didn't understand where that glove came from, because it almost made it seem like she was wearing one of those outfits like the guys came in the beginning, the big slow waddly guys. Or was I just making the wrong connection there?
I just can't believe that you guys are even thinking about this stuff when there's a naked Milla Jovovich on a table. All I remember was I had forgotten that she was actually topless in this movie. And so when it shows her topless, I was like, holy crap. And then even after, though, this is one of those cases where, like, the thermal bandages, as you mentioned, Raj, so iconic. It's easily my favorite Halloween costume ever.
Yeah. No, wait a minute. So was this movie PG-13 or was this an R-rated movie?
It's rated PG-13 for intense sci-fi violence, some sexuality, and brief nudity.
Okay, so it's brief nudity. So there's definitely some Milla Jovovich nipples going on, in like multiple times.
Three different scenes, 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 different scenes. You see Milla Jovovich's boobs. By today's rating, 2017, this movie would be like a hard R, right?
You're crazy. It'd be the other way. It's probably PG.
No,
I don't think you can get away with nipples in movies.
Yeah, you can't get away with nipples.
I think that's the killer right there.
Yeah, I love the fact. My mother is Swedish. In Sweden, they're okay with the naked body or sex on screen. They hate violence. Here in the U.S., you could watch Schwarzenegger blow 50 dudes' heads off, but God forbid you show Milla Jovovich's nipples at like 50 feet away. I think we got it backwards.
You don't want to ruin the kids, do you? No? No? All right.
I don't think that's going to ruin the kids.
So I understand the thermal bandages, but how were they able to put underwear on her?
That's what I'm saying. So, I'm watching this and, we're all watching that scene and we're like, damn you thermal bandages, hold off just 1 second. And then these things start strapping over like they magically form around her. But then when they do a close-up shot of her, she has like a designer dress on, like the thermal bandages somehow go up around her neckline. And then she has underwear on that matches the set. Like, I don't remember those thermal bandages in the creation process.
I think we're asking a lot of questions for a French film. I mean, this is the thing, is that it's supposed to look cool. That's the whole idea. And honestly, if you gave me the option between a world where this made sense and a world where the thermal bandage dress didn't exist, I'm taking world 1. Like, it doesn't need to make sense. So,
but Gene, there are other questions that I have, like, why do the flying cars make tire screeching sounds?
Yeah, exactly. It's just another one of those things that doesn't make any sense. Why are they? Why do the flying cars wait in a queue at a drive-in? I mean, or drive-through? Like, they have an advanced technology past a window that you got to pull up to.
I have a question about the military. Why in every movie are generals and the leaders so quick to want to go nuclear? They want always to just shoot whatever large weapon they've been waiting to, whether it's Independence Day or it's here. How come nobody takes the real approach and actually shows some restraint?
Wait a minute. You do live in America in 2017, right?
Yeah, but nobody's shooting nukes.
What are you talking about? We just celebrated the fact that we dropped the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan.
Okay, that was not a general who requested that strike.
It was.
It was the meathead down in Mar-a-Lago.
And to be fair here, I think that they actually, on the other hand, they have a fairly nuanced approach on General Monroe. He doesn't seem like this warmonger, like, he wants everything to be done with discretion, but I think he has a genuine concern when your planet is faced with annihilation from this great evil out in space that has eaten up satellites and stuff like that. I think you have a legitimate fear and you want to knock it out.
Yeah, you do, but you have to at least, exhaust some other avenues. You have the council of the clergy sitting there. It looks like you have a rabbi, you have a priest, and they're all trying to counsel the president. You obviously haven't investigated enough. Let's just launch a nuke. And then when that doesn't work, let's just launch 10 of them. And each time it grows larger. Wouldn't you realize you're feeding the beast?
So we spent a lot of time talking about the tactics of this, about the regenerative properties of futuristic tubes that women grow in. We can talk about all that until we're blue in the face, but I really want to advance this to the point of the actual thing that makes me love this movie, which is Bruce Willis. He emerges on the scene, absolutely steals the show. He's perfect in this environment, seems very natural there. He's just the right mix of kind of rugged and funny. And it opens up with that mugging scene, and it's just the right kind of quirky. This is where the movie starts for me. That kind of, where he like compliments the mugger on his hat and like pressing the button on the gun, and just that trickiness, the little bit of action there. I love that part.
Did it seem to you that like the mid to late 1990s Bruce Willis was more vulnerable?
No, we talked about this in Die Hard. Bruce Willis is the everyman. He is the flawed hero. He's charismatic. He is kind of what we would want to be as a guy. And it doesn't matter that he's balding or he kind of stumbles along the path until the end he becomes the hero.
But I think that's also the problem and what we've lost over the last few years with Bruce Willis. So in the last Die Hard movie, he's more of a superhero than the everyman. And those movies turned into something completely different. And that's why I think that last one was so bad, where he like goes to Russia to find his son. And he just says the whole time, I'm on vacation. He was never on vacation. I mean, that made no sense at all. But like, he just was there climbing on rockets, basically flying around, doing whatever. And it lost the appeal and that connection that we had in Die Hard and in this movie. And so I agree, like this was back when Bruce Willis cared, and it really showed. He was a lot more fun to watch in these type of movies.
Kevin, in our world, anything past 1999 does not exist. So these movies you speak of, I don't want you to ruin my pristine world.
All right.
But did anyone else find it odd that Bruce Willis's character just decides like to kiss this female who's like on his couch that just like fell in through his taxi? Is that the same move that you would do in the same situation?
I would love to know the thinking behind that. Why the writer? I mean, I think Luc Besson wrote this. Maybe it was the 16-year-old part of the screenplay that was still left over. But seriously, she is knocked out on his couch, and he goes to look at her, and he just kisses her straight up. Like she's not a Sleeping Beauty or Snow White. What was going through his head?
Big D, you've rescued women in perilous situations and brought them back to your couch. Have there been any situations to where you just like straight up just kiss them,
no,
wake them up?
No, again, I believe that's illegal. And I know in some future podcast you're going to tell us about a girl who's had too many Mai Tais or margaritas at Chili's and ends up falling asleep in the construction site. But
two for one.
You also got to remember, this is a French writer. 16 is middle-aged in France, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I want to tell you, I always watch movies with the subtitles, particularly because my wife, and Milla Jovovich's language that she created with the bada bada boom and help, they actually went through the hassle of typing out phonetically her dialogue as almost gibberish.
Yeah, I too have started watching with the captions on and was amazed that they actually went through the detail of that. And do you find it endearing, guys, her language, or was it annoying?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't remember her talking so much of that language when I rewatched it, and I was like, all right, can you hurry up or learn English and read through all your internet articles, whatever she was doing to catch herself up on current history. I'm like, yeah, I've had enough of this.
Yeah, it's very hard to make a made-up language in any way enjoyable in a movie. I think one of the few times I've seen it done even remotely okay was like in Firefly, where they had like just interspersed in there, and it kind of made sense. But I was right with you there, Kevin. I just was ready for them to move on and get her. And again, yeah, I didn't remember her talking that much.
Well, Cornelius learns from Leeloo that the four elements were not carried by the Mondo Shawans, but instead entrusted to Diva, and I'm not even going to say this last name, Diva the Blue Woman, a singer currently performing on a luxury space liner at Floston Paradise, and that Leeloo must recover the stones from her. Meanwhile, wealthy industrialist Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg has attempted to gain the stones as urged by communication with the Great Evil. After learning that the Mangalores' attack on the Mondo Shawans was unsuccessful in recovering the stones, Zorg betrays them, whereupon the surviving Mangalores decide to extract revenge and gain the stones for themselves.
There is no performance in this movie better than Gary Oldman's. This might be one of the best performances I've ever seen of any character ever. He was born to play this role. I mean, I loved him as Dracula. I've loved him in several different movies, but this is perfect for him. He's got that rapid fire drawl. He's got that panache, and he's making up for all of this what I consider generally glacial pacing in the movie. He speeds the whole thing up, and that demo with the ZF-1. That's like just the perfect showcase for exactly what he can do.
I got to disagree. I think that his best role was another Luc Besson film, The Professional. This is more of a caricature of that role.
Yeah, I mean, so that was Stansfield was the name of the guy in The Professional. And so you got to remember, this was just 3 years after that. So Luc Besson had directed him there, and obviously that's where he thought to cast Oldman in this role. But, Gary Oldman has for a long time been one of my favorite villain character. I don't know if you wouldn't really call him a character actor, but he plays these bigger than life characters. And so, you've got that Stansfield character. You've got obviously Zorg, who's amazing. One of my other favorite movies of all time, True Romance, directed by Tony Scott, written by Quentin Tarantino. He plays Drexel in that. He's got the dreadlocks and the gold teeth, and he's a gangster. But I mean, it's such a crazy character too. So Oldman is known for being able to play these bigger than life characters. And this is just such a weird role. And I agree with you, Gene. He's perfect for it.
Did anyone feel like me and feel bad for the Mangalores?
Again, I'd like to point out, Raj, that you felt no sympathy for actual races of people in Major League that were insulted, but this fictional race of people somehow has elicited some sort of empathy. Here's the thing: the only thing I felt bad for them is that they looked so shitty. They looked cartoonish, and this is a missed opportunity. You can have characters that are intimidating or somewhat frightening without being terrifying. There's a lot of gray area there. And I thought it was a missed opportunity there where you could have at least made a threat seem real. At no point did I feel like anybody was really threatened by these guys.
I don't think they were trying to make them something truly terrifying, like a xenomorph from Aliens. They wouldn't fit in with the overall world that they've created. You needed them to be almost cartoonish. Whether it's the shape-shifting effect or when we see that their cloaking or whatever it is starting to wear off. It's almost comical.
You know what wasn't comical was the ZF-1.
Right up there, I think. That was one badass weapon. Anything from the arrow launcher, you had a net gun, you had the ice cube system, and then you had what they've actually started to develop now is you shoot a round and then all the other rounds follow. The military's moving in smart munitions to where you can actually aim at a target and it will actually explode over the target. So that's becoming a reality, but I can't imagine any other movie weapon that you would want in a fight over this. Can you guys come up with anything?
Maybe the noisy cricket.
Definitely the noisy cricket.
Thing packs a punch.
100%. So Dallas is later met at his apartment by General Monroe, who informs him that he's been drafted into the army in order to travel to meet the diva, having rigged the annual Gemini croquet contest to allow Dallas to win. Their meeting is interrupted by the arrival of Cornelius and Leeloo. Dallas, learning of Leeloo's need, offers to help but is kicked out by Cornelius, who steals his winning transportation tickets and departs with Leeloo. Dallas accepts the job from General Monroe and travels to John F. Kennedy International Airport, intercepting Cornelius, David, and Leeloo before they board their flight. The Mangalores and Zorg's assistant are rebuffed by the ticketing agent when they try to pose as Dallas. Cornelius instructs David to prepare the temple, and then he sneaks aboard the passenger spaceplane before it leaves.
Okay, my question is this. How the hell did you just read that last paragraph so perfectly? You normally struggle reading a synopsis of like, Ricky Vaughn came out of the bullpen and threw 3 strikes, and you'll screw it up and go back. How did you just Zorg, xenomorphs, Mangalores? Why can't you do that every week?
I think the simple answer is the more detached from reality something is, the more Raj can understand it. I did want to give a shout out to another thing that made no sense on this at all was the flight attendants. As we've seen as time has progressed, flight attendants have become less and less scandalous. The sexuality has been dialed down a bit. We don't even call them stewardess. We call them flight attendant. So bravo to the casting on this one, because every single one of the flight attendants was spectacular. Everyone looked like a model, not at the least bit realistic, and I didn't mind a bit.
Let me ask you this, though. What the fuck was the garbage thing about at JFK? Why is the garbage there?
I think that's just another weird French thing. I think that's as far as we can go with that.
Like, they think of all the American airports are just, it's disgusting. They've got garbage everywhere you go, as they eat crepes and smoke cigarettes.
Again, that's the positive stereotyping that Roger's doing there, not the negative stereotyping. One of the things I loved about this movie as well is with Chris Tucker's performance, in the sense that I'm a big Prince fan, and people always kind of like thought Prince was gay or something like that, but it couldn't be farther, right? Prince is about was about as heterosexual as possible, in the sense that he was just incredible sex drive. And I love that they made this this cross-dressing, squealing entertainer of a man who was also like down with the ladies, right? I mean, he's a bad man. So that Ruby Rhod character was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I think Chris Tucker's performance in this is, up there with Gary Oldman. I think those two steal the show. I think Bruce Willis is a lot of fun to watch. This is a point in his career that I really enjoy watching, but it's all about the, Zorg and Ruby Rhod. Those two steal the show, and Chris Tucker, now seeing him in this, who else would have done this role better than him? I can't think of anybody that could replace him in this.
I think Kevin's really onto something, in the sense that I think what we're establishing here in the opinion of this movie, at least the two of us are, is that these performances are brilliant, and they're saving a story that's an absolute mess. The story, it's nonsense, right? But you've got just incredible performances. This movie is riding on the backs of a couple incredibly talented actors and some really beautiful women.
I totally agree with you. Watching Chris Tucker, it made me sad. I talked to my wife and I said, what happened to Chris? Whether it was he started to read his own press or his ego took control, but he could have been the next giant thing. And then, before this, he had done Friday, and he was really likable. He'd done the Rush Hour. It made me think of what could have been if either Chris had made some different choices or it had some different representation.
I think Chris Tucker actually made the conscious choice, if I'm not mistaken here. Right in if I am. I think Chris Tucker did the whole Dave Chappelle thing. I think he disappeared on purpose. I think he felt like he was being marginalized by these roles and wanted to be more serious. And so he took 8 to 10 years away from Hollywood and acting, because he didn't want to be typecast as these type of characters.
What's the one he just came back and did? Not just, I don't want to, it's probably was 7 years ago now too, but Silver Linings Playbook, right? He was in that, and he did a great job there, where Bradley Cooper's character is in a mental institution or whatnot, and he kind of sneaks him in the car whenever he gets out, and he says, he needs a ride home, and he's escaping. He's really funny in that, and that's a serious movie. That's an Oscar-winning movie, and so many great performances. So the guy obviously has potential, and I think we see it right here with this performance, because this performance is not just chewing the scenery. The decisions he makes and the way that he performs it, that's talent.
Absolutely. Upon arrival at Floston Paradise, Dallas is taken in by Ruby to prepare for the show, while Leeloo waits near Diva's quarters in order to retrieve the stones from her after her performance. The Diva show is interrupted by the Mangalores, and the Diva is fatally shot. Dallas learns from her dying words that the Diva has hidden the stones inside her body. After she dies, Dallas extracts them, giving them to Ruby to hold as he defeats the Mangalores and saves the rest of the passengers and crew. Leeloo is able to defeat the Mangalores that attempt to ransack the Diva's quarters. Zorg, having flown himself to Floston, fights Leeloo at the Diva's quarters, injuring her and forcing her to retreat. This allows him to take the case, and he believes contains the stones, while starting a time bomb. When Dallas goes to recover Leeloo, Zorg finds the case to be empty. Zorg then re-enters the liner just as Dallas, Leeloo, Cornelius, and Ruby leave it on Zorg's ship. Zorg is able to stop his bomb, but the defeated Mangalores activate another bomb, destroying Zorg and the liner.
For me, the problem with this movie is best exemplified in this sequence, because you've got what's clearly supposed to be a climactic scene. It's the rise of the action. And every movie's got this, from The Godfather to Billy Madison. You've got the big scene. And in this big scene, you've got the Diva, she's on stage, and at the same time there's the attack going on, and all these things are going on at the same time. And you're supposed to feel something huge there, some epic action. And the music, frankly, I thought was really awful, and the fight choreography fell completely flat. I was so disappointed in this scene that I remembered being really cool. And again, part of the reason we do this podcast is, are our memories accurate? I was way off.
I think it was really good in theory. So like the idea of the big action scene and the music going on while Leeloo is fighting people over here, like the idea was really good. But again, I agree with you 100%. It's the choreography was terrible and the action was just not satisfying.
I think also we talked about that the sound editing won an Academy. In the beginning, it was more the music was used to set the mood and the tone. There was some oddly placed pieces of almost comical music where it turned into slapstick. I don't know what they were going for, but it completely pulls you out of an action sequence.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. It's just really odd music choices throughout the entire movie.
Well, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Milla Jovovich was nominated for an MTV award for Best Fight Sequence. She was terrible. If anyone deserved the MTV Movie Award nomination, it was Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruce Willis, thank God, shows up and decides to show everyone what an action sequence should look like. I've always thought that it doesn't take much to be an action star, right? They just got to have like some muscles and they take care of the rest for you. This is a movie that really highlighted for me what it looks like when someone doesn't know how to be an action star, when someone does. The way he's running and gunning, even in this comedic, fantastic environment, it's totally believable. It's exciting. There's that scene where, you know, they say, I hope, or he's been instructed to make this all happen discreetly. And then he just comes out blasting and murdering the fuck out of everything. Loved it.
Do you think Chris Tucker got Tiny Lister the job on this movie? Because weren't they both in Friday?
Yeah, I think that there has to be some kind of a connection there because, you know, I remember seeing this, I think, Friday was that 1990?
95.
95, okay, yeah, so that was earlier. So yeah, I remember seeing this and being like, that's Debo. That's the guy who's, you know, just beating him up and stealing his bicycle and all that stuff. And then he's the president in this movie, which I just think is fantastic. And I like that actor. His nickname's Tiny. I can't remember the guy's real name. But yeah, there has to be some kind of a casting connection, I would think.
Yeah, I think it was a lost opportunity that they're never in a scene together.
Oh, without a doubt. I think Tiny Lister does a great job as president. Like, he's playing the role very straight. Everyone else is kind of hamming it up. Tiny Lister is playing the role. I am the fucking president of the Federation, and at no point am I pulling out my old Debo or my Zeus antics or anything like that. The four return to the temple on Earth as the great evil rushes towards the planet. There, Dallas finds Leeloo disillusioned and unwilling to perform her role, believing that humans will destroy themselves despite her rescue of them. As the protagonists arrange the stones in their temple to form their weapon, they are briefly baffled by their ignorance of the weapon's operation, but discover that each stone is triggered by the presence of the classical element to which it corresponds. Dallas then convinces Leeloo to perform her role, embraces her, and kisses her. At this, Leeloo releases the weapon's divine light, causing the great evil to become the new moon in Earth's orbit. Later, the President and General Monroe go to the reconstitution lab to congratulate Dallas on a successful mission, but he and Leeloo are unavailable despite the President's assertion that he is in a hurry. Viewers then see that he and Leeloo are making love in the resurrection chamber.
I could not dislike this ending more. I think that things were really cool on the ship. You ended with Gary Oldman getting blown up. People are escaping left and right. Really cool stuff going on. And then we end up with this completely unnecessary ending, or at least poorly done. Aside from the ridiculous physics of stopping a planet-sized fireball and then turning it into a new moon, which makes no sense at all. It would tear the planet apart and probably pull the water straight out of the ocean. The whole end, it's preachy. It's unimaginative. I hated the use of the stones. Just bad all around.
Oh, I almost lost it when he lit that last match. I mean, was anyone else thinking that too? Like, so they get I thought Captain Planet was going to show up. They got the water elements and they got the wind and all that stuff going on. And then for the last one, it's fire, and they have no means of lighting a fire except for he finds the one match in his pocket and he lights it, basically like puts the match up over his head to light it. And then they all say, "Don't breathe." And they slowly try to put it down to the block before it blows out. I'm like, are you kidding me? Would you guys not have struck the match on top of the fire block?
Yeah, I had a bigger problem with the overall messaging. That Milla finally goes, or Leeloo goes back, and she's watching all the violent in human history and becoming distraught. So we have to introduce the sixth element, which is love, and love can save us. It was so corny. It was so contrived. And then this ball of fire is coming to hit the Earth. And Bruce Willis is going to be coy about saying, "I love you." everyone is screaming, say it, say it, say it. Say I love you. And he's, I love you. And whispering it, come on. That just ruined it. And then you have to end the movie like The Breakfast Club on that freeze frame fade to black of them in the tube.
Well, I think that whole love story is a problem too, though, because if you think about it in the beginning, the major or the general is calling up Korben and, talking about his wife that left him. And he's like, oh, I just want to find someone to love. And then, he kisses her on the couch when she's passed out. And then they go on this adventure for 2 days and then they're in love. Like, I don't even know that relationship to me. I didn't feel that there was actually any connection. When did they even have time to fall in love?
Speaking of things that are completely out of place, the mom joke when his mom on the phone was just not entertaining at all, and then she calls and the president has to talk to her, and what is that all about?
But the only thing that saves it, like we talked about before, though, is the acting, and I think Tiny Lister did such a good job with that. Like, if it were anyone else, just on paper, the mom joke, I get that it's lame, but I like the way he answered it, and he did a good job with what he was given.
So here's how you save this movie, or at least this ending, right? And this is what I really wish would have happened, is that you don't have the entirely happy ending, that as he falls in love with her and she bursts into that light that stops the planet for the great evil, is that she disappears, right? Or something like that.
Right.
If this movie had half the maturity of E.T., that's what would have happened.
I agree. The ending, I mean, this is totally a 90s movie ending where they don't know what to do with the characters. Apparently, they've fallen in love in a day and a half. Like, let's just end it with them getting it on, right? And just, like, go to credits. Another movie that I really love, and this is in your 90s wheelhouse, is Hackers. They end the movie with the two main characters making out in a pool, and then it goes to credits just like this. Like, I just feel like in the 90s, they felt like that was the edgy thing to do, is have the two main characters just make out and end the movie.
Did anyone else find it weird that they stuck stones in Diva and then they had to pull them out of them? Like, did anyone else find it odd?
It's a very odd thing. But again, this movie, I think what you really have to look at it as is a cartoon. I mean, this movie is basically like a cartoon Blade Runner, kind of like you mentioned before. And so the things aren't necessarily going to be believable. And I think that's part of the appeal and why I still like it. I realize there's a lot of silly things and some of the writing isn't that great, but also some of the fun stuff about it and just the quirkiness and the characters like Zorg and the diva character. I think you just have to embrace it for the weirdness and how different it is.
Well, that's the end of our review. Now's the time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meter and give you, the audience, our estimate of how many wipes this movie would need to take to get off of your butts. If you've never listened to the podcast or this is your first time listening to it, here's how this goes. It's a 0 to 5 wipe scale. 0 wipes means it's green, baby. This is just the Shat movie that Ruby Rhod would talk about on his radio show. It's no fuss, no muss, it pops. And 5 wipes is the equivalent of a big bada boom multi-mass whose weight would blow a hole in the roof of your taxi cab. So with that being said, gentlemen, how many wipes would it take to get this movie off of your ass? Kevin, as the guest on the show, we'll let you go first.
Well, I will say that going into this movie, I thought it was going to be 0. I had a very different memory of this film. And like I said before, I still enjoyed it, but I'm going to give it a 2 wipe. I think I still enjoy it. I probably won't watch it, for another few years or so. So it's a little more messy than I would have hoped for.
Gene, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing with the movie is I feel like it's like a relationship that I used to have or something like that, right? Like that ex-girlfriend that shines in your memories, but then when you see her in real life, it's just really not that good. And that for that betrayal, for that fuckery of my memory of this movie, when I actually watch it again, I feel like a particular contempt for it. So for me, despite some really brilliant performances, I'm going to have to go with 3 wipes on this one, just right in the middle.
How about you, Big D?
I'm going to break this up, and I haven't done this before. I think the first half of the movie is a 2, easily. It's enjoyable, it's moving. And then we hit that late second, third act, and to me, it's a 3.5, maybe 4. So I'm going to kind of rate it in halves. Yes, I would watch the first half again. It's fun. Second half, hell no, fast forward. So 2, then 3.5. We'll break it down at 2.75.
Oh, God, these fractional wipes are Messing with us. All right, so I too, like you, though, I'm going to have to go fractional. I think this is a solid 2.5 white movie. I found it enjoyable at times. I think this is a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. It is a cheerful Blade Runner. I do have to say, there are times where, like you guys talked about, the pacing was a little off. It felt disjointed. It felt like at some point a 16-year-old wrote this movie. So for this, for me, it's a solid 2.5 white movie. What does that give us? Gene, that gives us a solid 2.69 wipes. That would take this off of this movie. Big D, where does this rate on our Shat scale and an equivalence to the other movies we've rated? 2.69.
I like how that it's a solid fractional number. I just enjoy that description.
Yeah, that's how I operate.
So what was it? Was it 2.68?
2.69.
Okay, so right in that range, in the 2.7s, 2.68. Is Pretty Woman and Revenge of the Nerds. It takes it a little bit lower than the top half. Out of our 25 movies, I think it probably sits at around 14, 15. It's not as bad as Christmas Vacation, but it's not as good as Rocky IV.
Yeah, that's about right.
I just want to let this be known on record. I would watch The Fifth Element any given day before I'd watch Pretty Woman. This movie is far superior to Pretty Woman.
Are you kidding me? That taught us so much about love.
It taught us a lot about strawberries.
And how to negotiate with prostitutes. I mean, besides you, this movie was how I learned about prostitutes.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Big D, what is our next week's movie?
So next week was animated films.
Films.
We had Toy Story, Transformers the movie, Little Mermaid, which was my favorite. And then Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which won hands down with 46%. We've had some people balking at that Roger Rabbit is not a fully animated film, but who cares? We're the judge, jury, and executioner. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is an animated film, and that's what we'll be doing.
Are you saying we're the Judge Dredd of our podcast?
Possibly.
Which, by the way, Judge Dredd, terrible movie. Dredd fucking rocks, like the Dredd movie. Yeah, absolutely. So, Kevin, what's the next movie that's coming up on Real Spoilers?
Well, so we just did Fast 8 or whatever you want to call that movie, The Fate of the Furious. So look for that up there soon. That's our most recent. And the next one coming up, we were going to do a specialty episode, which usually means that we kind of go back like you guys do. We'll go back to what we call deep fried tacos, which are the movies that are bad, but we love them. You know, they're bad for you, but they taste so good. We'll go and we'll do a theme like horror movies, that kind of thing. But then we found out that this week, this crazy, just batshit insane looking movie with Katherine Heigl is coming out, where she like stalks her ex-husband's new girlfriend and like frames her for crimes and stuff. It looks insane. I can't even remember what it's called, but so I think that might be the next one we tackle.
Well, hey, before we close this out, did you see that link I sent you? That there's a Fifth Element sequel?
What?
I texted it to you in
No.
Yeah, I texted it in.
Is it a sequel?
I saw it.
Valerian,
and I sent it to you.
About.
So that's the new movie that's coming out that Luc Besson's directing.
What?
Yeah, but there was something that they said that he had acknowledged that it was somewhat of a sequel.
It looks like a kind of a return to form.
Yeah, it's basically the 28th century. Valerian and Laureline are special operatives charged with keeping order throughout human territories. On assignment from the Minister of Defense, the two undertake a mission to Alpha, an ever-expanding metropolis where species from across the universe have converged over centuries to share knowledge, intelligence, and culture. At the center of Alpha is a mysterious, dark force which threatens the peaceful existence of the city of 1,000 planets, and Valerian and Laureline must race to identify the menace and safeguard not just Alpha, but the future of the universe. So yeah, it sounds similar.
It looks cool, though. I mean, it definitely has the action elements, and it's very sci-fi. So I hope it's a return to form to him, because the last thing he did, I think, was The Family with Robert De Niro, when they go to stay in France, but they're like he's a secret agent or something, and yeah.
Wait a minute, was this the French Meet the Fockers?
Pretty much. I mean, it was not good. So, Luc Besson has made some great films, and like Leon the Professional, like Big D mentioned, that's one of my favorites. So I really hope that he can kind of bring it back around.
Well, listen, anytime that you want us to be on Real Spoilers, you have three of us to choose from. We'd love to come on the show.
Sounds great. I appreciate it, guys. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
So that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can also search for us on Facebook. Just search for Shat the Movies Podcast, our website where you can vote for upcoming movies. Big D just posted multiple weeks worth of films that you can vote on. That website is shatthemovies.com. Our email address, if you want to shoot us some themes, some theories, movies you want us to review. Our email address is hosts@shatthemovies.com. You can commission us. If there's an absolute film, if you want to buy a fast pass, get to the front of the line, you can do that. Just email us, and we'll take that into consideration. We're everywhere. Fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by any of those sites, please be sure to leave a review. It helps the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, and soon-to-be Game of Thrones. You can find all that information on that website, shatontv.com. In fact, American Gods, Gene, right around the corner, we got a preview show we got to record.
That's right. Yeah, we'll be looking at some of the characters and the casting for American Gods before it releases on April 30th. So look forward to a blog post and a preview episode coming up in a few days.
And Kevin, if people want to check out Real Spoilers, how can they do that?
Sure, you can check out the website, realspoilers.com. That's real with 2 E's. And we have most of the episodes on there. Sometimes there's a couple episode delay, but if you subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, whatever, Google Store, you should be able to just search Real Spoilers and it comes up on there. And then also we have a written portion, reviewstl.com. We are based out of St. Louis, so that's where the STL comes from. But if you want to read those reviews, there's a lot more stuff. And then also we dive into more concerts, CD reviews, things like that. So we go beyond the movie side.
Very cool. Well, on behalf of my co-host, Gene Lyons, Big D, and Kevin Brackett from Real Spoilers, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for our animated review of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, good night, and good luck.